everyone, and welcome back to What If Deku Had a Werewolf Quirk? So let's get started. In the last part, Deku and all his little friends were sparring and getting ready to essentially participate in the UA Sports Festival. Throughout the week that they were sparring, a lot of them had a lot of good improvement. Deku saw a lot of promise in the areas where he had kind of critiqued them. He felt that his advice had a huge impact on helping each and every one of his friends improve in an area where they weren't exactly the most proficient. But by the time that the UA Sports Festival came around, Deku was very confident that all of his friends could basically hold their own and show a lot of, I'll say, promise. Like, if nothing else, they'll impress a lot of pro heroes. But it's the day of the sports festival, and Deku and all the other students basically meet at the arena where the festival is being held, and they're waiting in the waiting room, basically waiting for the introduction to 1A. Obviously, over the intercoms, they hear about the business course, the general education, and Class 1B, and as they're lining up to basically walk out for their introduction, President Mike comes over the speaker and gives them a very warm welcome by announcing, and last but not least, these primary stars of this year's batch of students, Class 1A. Of course, Kirishima kind of feels that it was kind of overdone. Granted, that's because Kirishima is very humble and thinks that they shouldn't be given special kind of praise just because they made it into 1A. Deku is just kind of silently standing there with his dear Uraraka kind of walking hand in hand with him. And of course, Izuku is the representative for 1A this year because he was the one who had the highest scores, I believe. So unfortunate for him, he wasn't told that he was supposed to be doing a speech, but basically Midnight calls him up to the podium to give his speech, and I'm gonna say Deku is very nervous. He's very anxious about having to give a speech to all the students, but he takes a deep breath, and as he looks over to Uraraka, he lets the breath out and begins his speech. I would like to thank all of you for coming out to witness this historical moment in UA history, where you witness the next up-and-coming generation of heroes before they make it big. And I wanted to say that no matter which course any of us come from, that doesn't make any of us lesser than the other. General Ed, the business course, 1B, 1A, we're all students of UA. We all made our way into this, and all of us are important. For example, the support course is very important because if it wasn't for the tech that they created, or for support heroes in general, most pro heroes wouldn't have the equipment that they need to do everyday work. So at the end of the day, 1A isn't the sole important class. Every class matters. So to everyone out there, let's all do our best to show this adoring crowd what the next generation of heroes will look like. And all go plus ultra. The crowd is going wild. Everyone is clapping their hands and cheering on Deku for his awe-inspiring speech that basically kind of like set a new precedence for most people, because in all of UA history, no one has ever kind of gone out of their way to hype up any of the other courses during the speech. But nevertheless, I'm going to cut over to a very small apartment district where a woman with blonde hair is sitting with her husband, who has very distinctively spiky brown hair and a pair of glasses. And sitting next to the couple is a very short, stubby, green-haired woman with some of her hair reaching down to her shoulder blades and some of it in a bun, who is at the moment staring at the TV with a lot of intensity in her eyes. This green-haired woman looks awestruck. Kind of out of it, I'd say. Like, in all of the years that she has spent on this earth, she is at a loss for words as to what exactly she is seeing on the screen right now. And the blonde woman who is sitting next to her is just as baffled at what she's seeing. I'm going to say that ever since Izuku went missing, Mitsuki has been very supportive towards Inko, right? She's been very supportive in Inko's plight and Inko's discomfort after losing her son, supposedly, and has been there every step of the way, trying to comfort Inko and make her feel better after the loss of her son. But for that green-haired boy with freckles to be on the screen all of a sudden, it makes Mitsuki wonder what the hell is going on. She thinks to herself, that can't be Izuku, can it? There's no way. He went missing many years ago. Inko said that he was taken in a villain attack. So this begs the question for Mitsuki. If Izuku was taken in a villain attack according to Inko, then how is the boy who is sitting on the podium there in the first place? It doesn't make sense for Miski. She doesn't have any idea on how to properly explain what this is. She looks over to her best friend and notices that her friend isn't smiling. She's not even crying. She's staring at the TV with a very unsatisfactory look on her face, as if she's angry for some reason, like there's something pissing her off. Mitsuki keeps her mouth shut, but I'm going to say that she might try and figure out what's going on, like through her own investigations. But in the meantime, cutting back to the sports festival, Midnight spins the wheel and announces that the first event is going to be a foot race. Now, Izuku and the others, they all kind of collect together into the starting line, which is in a tunnel. And Izuku finds this to be very strange as to why they're starting in a tunnel. But then it hits him that all the students are going to be fighting in order to get out of the tunnel and to the other side of the that way that they can be in the lead. And unfortunate for them, it's going to probably cause a lot of students who are pushed over to get trampled on. But he can see the logic in this. And as Deku is kind of looking around himself, trying to essentially mathematically and analyze the situation he's in, situation of everything around him, he comes to a realization. Him and the others are essentially crammed into a small space with Mr. My power is ice and I have daddy issues. And he kind of puzzles together a deductive reasoning that in order to kind of, I'm going to say, make his chances a little bit better of being in the lead, Todoroki is more than likely going to try and freeze the whole corridor and try and to try and slow down the competition. So before Midnight can kind of initiate the race, Izuku turns a little to his side and scoops Uraraka up into his arm, and he turns to the others, that being Mina, Kirishima, Tokoyami, and Sue, and tells them, hey, whenever Midnight says go, I recommend you jump as high as you can and make sure your feet are not touching the ground. The others are kind of confused as to what he's talking about, but as Midnight says go, they take the split second to trust his instinct and jump off of the ground. And Izuku kind of leaps over the crowd with Uraraka in his arms as he's kind of getting over the others, a very sharp sound of frost spreads across the area, and the whole corridor, from bottom to top, is covered in a layer of ice, which is kind of crawling up a bunch of the other participants' legs and freezing them to the ground. And running out from the front of the crowd is Todoroki, followed by Izuku with Uraraka in his arms. And as Tokoyami, Sue, Kirishima, and Mina kind of like also break from the others, a very loud explosion could be heard from the tunnel, and the not so spicy anymore habanero Pomeranian is kind of propelling himself out of the tunnel. And Bakugo yells, "That was a cheap trick, Icy Hot!" Granted, like I've illustrated multiple times, Bakugo is not a hateful person in this What If. I'm gonna make him more chill. So he says it more as like, I guess, that like he says nicknames kind of just because he wants to be a bit friendlier and give kind of cute nicknames. Like, for instance, he doesn't call Kirishima Shippy Hair. I'm gonna say that he calls Kirishima in this instance blood spikes or red pebble. He calls him a red pebble in this, I guess. But back to the whole Icy Hot thing. Despite him having said it in a kind of frustrated tone, he respects Todoroki's ability to kind of take advantage of the situation and kind of eliminate the competition. Mind you, technically there's nothing against any other participants using their quirks to slow any of the other participants down, so he can't really complain. But the race gets underway, and obviously as soon as they get out from the tunnel, they are met with 3 0-pointers. And as they're passing them, Todoroki tries to freeze them only long enough to kind of let him pass, but Izuku kind of jumps up with Uraraka, kind of now positioning herself on his back. He shifts into his hybrid form, and he basically punches one of the robots away from the others, that way that it's not falling on them and risking any of them getting hurt by accident. Also because he wanted to show off to all the pro heroes in the crowd who are watching his amazing display of power and elegance. Also because he's trying to show off to his girl, but I'm not going to get into that right now. So they're running, and Deku is quickly catching up to Todoroki, because obviously Todoroki, the best that boy can do in terms of speeding around is just to kind of use his ice to surf across the land, but Todoroki has nothing on Izuku's beast-like speed. So, let's see, I'm going to say that now Tokoyami, Sue, Kirishima, and Mina are kind of like the back horses in this endeavor, while Bakugo is in 4th place because obviously Uraraka is like riding on Deku's back. Todoroki is falling behind with Izuku being front runner at the moment. Granted, Bakugo is catching up very quickly because of his explosions. And then we get to the chasm portion. And as Deku is kind of looking around trying to assess the best way for him to get across, Todoroki kind of launches himself up into the like air over the chasm and kind of creates himself like an ice bridge before quickly kind of like melting it with his other foot behind him. That way, like, no one else can use it. He's still not using his fire. He's just melting the ice. That way, then no one else can have that advantage. And Deku, basically seeing all the kind of earth surfaces for him to land on, he's quickly jumping from platform to platform, kind of like getting across with like a fair amount of speed. Bakugo just kind of propels himself over the chasm like without breaking a sweat, except for in his hands, because he needs the sweat to get over the chasm and explode. And I'm gonna say that I'm just gonna focus on the main 3. Like Uraraka, obviously she helps Deku kind of like get over the chasm by like helping him reduce his gravity. That way he's able to kind of like mostly float over the bigger gaps that he can't make on his own. And as they're reaching the 3rd obstacle, which is the minefield, Izuku asks Uraraka to kind of like make him weightless, like after he jumps, in order to kind of give him more kind of to make it to where he's able to float further past the minefield. Granted, this is like when Deku is shifted, I'm gonna say that he's heavier than he is in his base form, so prolonged exposure to this will make Uraraka sick. So he's flying over the minefield, and Uraraka is making him float, which is like I'm gonna say that it's kind of pushing her limits. And just as they're about to get maybe 3/4 of the way over, Uraraka tells Deku that she doesn't feel too good, and he tells her to just let go of her quirk and he'll take care of the rest. So as she lets go of, as she releases her quirk, they're still over the minefield, mind you, but Deku can kind of can see that there's obvious kind of color differences in the ground, so he aims his hands and feet just right in order to avoid having stepped on one of the mines. Mind you, it was really close. He was really close to accidentally hitting one, but he manages to kind of get over the minefield the rest of the way. Todoroki, knowing that it's either do or die at this point, he kind of covers up the mines and is which will let other participants get past it a lot easier later. But he doesn't care. He wants to surpass Deku. And obviously, at that moment, Bakugo kind of beats out Todoroki. like and basically propels himself, and he's catching up to Deku very, very fast. But it's not enough, and Izuku wins the first round. Now I'm not a huge fan of the was it cavalry battle? I'm not like a huge fan of it, so I'm going to change up the what the second event is. I'm going to say that the second competition is going to be a King of the Hill. So the rules are going to be like this. When there's going to be one throne in the very center of the arena. And basically the students are going to have to pair up into into teams and individually I'm gonna say teams of 5. So teams of 5. One of them is going to basically have to act as the king, and the other 4 are gonna have to act as the royal guard. So technically, the person who sits on the throne is the king. It's not specific to to one person being the king. Just as long as one of the team members is on the throne, you get points. So the only downside is that the person who is playing the king on the throne is not allowed to use their quirk to fend off anyone from basically from doing their part, right? They're not allowed to to use, for example, Bakugo, if he was to sit on the throne, he cannot use his quirk to defend himself against anyone who's trying to dethrone him. So, because Deku and Uraraka are in first place, I'm going to say that the penalty for Deku, because of him having been in first place, is going to be that let me think. Him and his team are not allowed to actively participate for, I'm going to say, 2 minutes. And this is going to last a total of 15 minutes in total of them fighting over this throne. So whoever pairs up with Deku, they're gonna have a disadvantage of not being able to actively go for the throne for 2 minutes, which is gonna give the other teams plenty of time to essentially kind of get their bearings and rank up points on the throne. And Deku kind of feels betrayed because of the fact that no one's gonna want to be on his team because they feel like they're at a severe disadvantage. Well, other than his sweet little Uraraka. So obviously Uraraka is gonna be part of his team, and for the most part, the others, other students, they're kind of trying to avoid him. But I'm gonna say that. Let's see. I'm gonna say that Kirishima, Mina, and let's see, for his 4th, I'm gonna say it's gonna be I'm gonna have to go with Ida. So how this plays out is that Like, Deku is kind of feeling down, and that's until Kirishima and Mina kind of walk over to him, and, like, they both exclaim that they would love to be a part of his team, and he kind of starts to cry a little bit. He's like, but we're gonna have to sit out for like 2 minutes. That's gonna put us at a big disadvantage. Kirishima kind of like strolls, like ponders, like moses over, puts his hand on Deku's shoulder and says, man, it's the least I could do for you, giving me and Mina the heads up about what you thought Todoroki would do. It really saved our skin back there. Deku smiled and was so happy to hear that, that Kirishima, like, I guess kind of, I don't want to say that like praise him for it, but hear appreciation from Kirishima for simply like kind of warning him about what like his gut told him was going to happen. Mina agreed that if it wasn't for Deku, they would have been that she would have been a pink popsicle, and Kirishima would have been a red popsicle. And Ida comes over and says that he'll join the team too because of Izuku kind of opening his eyes to kind of what he could do with his quirk during like their training or their the training in preparation for the sports festival, and that Ida wanted to kind of show his appreciation through this, basically helping Deku in this event. But he told Deku to not expect him to to go easy on him if they end up fighting each other at some point. Deku smiles and says that he wouldn't dream of holding back and that he would definitely give Ida his best. Ida smiles and they all kind of get into place like in the corner of the arena, and all the other teams are assembled. I'm not going to go over... Actually, I probably should go over the other teams, or at least the important ones, I guess. Actually, no, I don't want to. It'll take too much time, and it's going to be a lot to kind of keep up with. But essentially, they all get into place, and Midnight kind of signals for the event to begin, and I'm going to say that, you know what, screw it. I'll make up a couple of the other teams. Okay, so Team 1 is going to be obviously Deku and his friends. I'll say Team 2 is Bakugo, Momo, Denki, Jiro, and Sero. Team 3 will be Shoto, Su, Tokoyami, Sato, and Shoji. And Team 4 will be Ojiro, Toru, Koda, Aoyama, and Mineta. So basically, Deku is going, and his team will have to sit out for 2 minutes, and I'm going to say the first one to actually get to be the King of the Hill is going to be Bakugo, because obviously once it starts, he's going to propel himself as fast as he can all the way to the throne, and he's going to sit on top of the throne with the others kind of trying to catch up to him, but unfortunately his brash behavior kind of gets him knocked off early, because since Team 3 has faster members in it. Obviously, Shoto and let's see, I'm gonna say Shoto is able to get Bakugo off and kind of creates a wall of ice to kind of surround, to kind of block off Bakugo's team from him. And with the help of Su, Tokoyami, and Shoji, they're able to kind of get Bakugo kicked off of the throne. And I'm gonna say that Todoroki's gonna have Sato sit on the throne, since it's more strategically sound to have Shoto not on the throne. That way he's able to kind of create a barrier around the throne. That way they're able to kind of keep it to themselves, right? But but I'm gonna say that how would I do this? After about this all happens within the matter of a minute and a half. So Deku's team is almost ready to kind of be deployed, right? So and I'm gonna say that Bakugo is definitely giving it his best. He's definitely blasting away at Todoroki's barriers, which he is able to kind of get into the ice dome, but unfortunately, because of the dome kind of creating a very cold atmosphere inside of it, right? It's not exactly working for Bakugo, since he needs to be hot in order to create his sweat. Though on the other half of it, Jiro has used her headphone jacks to kind of plug into Todoroki's ice and sends a giant vibration through the ice, completely shattering the dome. And it's at this moment that Deku's team has been deployed. So Deku, being the compassionate and very smart leader he actually is, he kind of devises a plan using his other members to with his other members in the meantime, while they're kind of waiting it out and seeing how each of them is playing their own part in strategizing, right? So they kind of execute the plan, and for this to work, Deku he goes into his full form, and basically has Mina, Kirishima, Ida, and Ochako kind of climb on top of him, right? To where Mina is kind of hanging off the side of his luscious werewolf coat. And as they approach the throne, right? I'm gonna say that Deku kind of takes a deep breath in and howls as loud as he can, kind of creating a very loud kind of reverberating force that kind of pushes the other participants away from him, in a way kind of giving him that opening he needs to kind of have Ochako like jump down towards the throne. Of course, Aoyama is kind of shooting his naval lasers at them, but Kirishima blocks the lasers. And I'm going to say that Ida is like meticulously how do I put this in a way that doesn't sound entirely horrible? Ida is running around, essentially kicking the other participants that aren't a part of the main 4 teams, and are kind of knocking them away from the throne as fast as he can, while Kirishima is essentially providing shield advantage, and Mina, under the supervision of Deku, is basically shooting out a very viscous acid that is kind of scattering around the whole field, almost like acid mines. I'm gonna say acid mines because if you step in it, it's gonna hurt a lot. But Deku is essentially kind of standing over the throne where Ochako is sitting, and is watching everyone's moves, everyone's kind of tactics, right? And even though he's not a part of the main 4 teams, I'm gonna say that Monoma is going to runs in and jumps on Deku and touches him, right? Let's just say that this does not go very well. It's gonna go very not well in terms of how this is gonna play out. Now, yes, Izuku's quirk is a stockpiler, so it should be a blank for Monoma. But on the other hand, it's also a transformation type. So I'm just gonna preface this by saying that the transformation Monoma is going to go through is going to hurt like hell. And for any of you who do not know why, I welcome you to travel back to part 1 and re-listen to Izuku go through his transformation. So going on to that, Monoma, he tries to transform and it does not go well for him. He basically, everything hurts. And unfortunately, that's going to last until, the time limit of his copy quirk kind of, runs out. So however long it's going to take for him to, lose the ability to have access to that quirk, he's going to hurt for. So that's not fun. Anyway, Deku is, essentially kind of, quickly moving around the throne, using his tail to sweep away any of the participants who get too close. And out of nowhere, Bakugo kind of flies in with his explosions, and Deku, in an attempt to try and knock him away, uses his tail, but Bakugo is able to kind of outmaneuver it, which then gives Todoroki a perfect opportunity to use his ice to freeze Deku's tail in place. But of course, with a simple howl, it breaks the ice because of the reverberation. And Deku uses his canines to grab hold of Bakugo's in the back of Bakugo's shirt and kind of fling him away to the other side of the arena, and then uses his paw to slash at Todoroki, kind of smacking him away. And this kind of keeps repeating all the way until, I'm going to say, Todoroki just kind of gets fed up and disregards, like if this will hurt his team or not, stomps his foot on the ground and freezes the whole arena. Like all the participants are frozen. Freaking the ice is reaching all the way into the crowd. Some people are getting like real cold, and Todoroki just kind of walks over to the throne, and before he's able to grab Uraraka, forcefully I will add, because he's upset about the whole like how tedious this is, and how like he wants to prove his dad wrong about how like he doesn't need his quirk and all this other like mess. Deku sees Todoroki reaching for Uraraka in a very kind of hostile manner, and we all know what happens when Deku sees someone trying to touch his girl in a very hostile manner. He gets pissed, and he's able to break off enough of the ice to kind of bite at Todoroki, which kind of, I'm gonna say, not so subtly like causes Todoroki to kind of flinch back, but it still like leaves him open for Deku to kind of swipe at him, which does kind of like deliver a very nasty kind of cut to Todoroki's arm in the process. And Todoroki does manage to, like, even though he does get cut, like touch Deku with his hand, which then freezes Deku's entire arm. Not enough to destroy the arm, but enough for it to hurt. And like Deku uses his other paw to smack him away before reverberating with the howl and breaking the ice off of his arm. And like I'm gonna say, yeah, that's it. That's the end of the round, because like President Mike and them call it, because like the 15 minutes are up or whatever, and obviously Izuku and his team win like through an outstanding victory. And I'm going to basically like go over to the fights. Now I'm going to say, because of the abysmal display of resistance against Izuku and his friends, that the staff is going to have to kind of take some time to go over like the roster and figure out how they're going to play out the tournament, like who fights who. I'm going to say that the first match is going to be Izuku and Shinso. Now, I'm going to say that like that whenever they start, that Shinso basically like starts talking some stupid mess, basically, how does Uraraka deserve to be in this school? She's basically riding his coattails, and that like she's hardly having to do a single thing to like prove herself or anything like that. And this pisses off Izuku immensely. Like, Izuku is just infuriated because of the fact that, like, because someone's dissing his girl, you know what I mean? Like, he's pissed. He tells Shinso that he needs to shut his mouth. And this is when Deku falls under the effects of Shinso's quirk. And Shinzo basically tells Izuku to turn around and walk off the stage. Izuku tries to feel like it to make his body do what he wants it to, but he can't. He's not able to. His body won't respond. He feels as if like he's lost all ability to function. Like his whole body doesn't want to respond. None of it. It freaks him out. It makes him feel anxious and scared, and the fear starts to sink back into his heart. The fear of not being able to control himself, not being able to tell his body to do what he wants it to. He's so afraid of losing control of his sense of self that whenever his real body starts moving towards the edge, it suddenly stops. It stops moving. Shinzo is confused. He's frustrated. He's like, what's going on? I said walk off the ring, damn it. And at this moment, Izuku's body turns around and starts changing forms. He turns into a wolf. His eyes are glazed over, and it's almost as if he's in a trance. Not like brainwashing, but like it's almost like something else is in control of his body. A low tone growl escapes his throat, and Izuku feels numb. He doesn't know what he's doing anymore. It just feels so numb. His body doesn't want to respond. His brain feels like it's slowing down until he feels it. He feels the energy of something primal within his very being call out to him. It screams, "How dare you command an alpha? How dare you try to hold dominion over me?" Izuku looks up, and before him stands a giant wolf. Before him stands a beast. It declares, "All this time I have lent you this power, and what have you done? You have cowered and feared your own ability. You have walked the path of a coward. You who holds the power of a lichen. You are an alpha boy. You take orders from no one. They should be bowing at your feet, for you are the alpha, and they are the omega." Izuku doesn't understand what's going on. All he knows is that an immense pressure has been pressed down on him. Through his eyes, he sees himself stalking closer to Shinzo, head low, teeth bared, a snarl escaping his throat. And as he gets closer, Shinzo starts to back up all the way until he gets to the line. His pride doesn't let him go over the boundary that would get him eliminated. But the fear of the thing that stalks closer creeps into his heart. He knows that this is no longer the boy from the classroom. The boy who called him out for his disrespect, for his filled words, for his gloating even without any kind of proof to back himself up. He no longer sees that boy. All he sees in front of him is a man-made monster. One that has been asleep for a very long time, and through his own efforts has woken up. He lets go of his quirk, but it doesn't stop. Izuku tries to take back control, but it doesn't work. He looks to the giant wolf and says, "Give me back control, damn it!" The wolf laughs in his face, says, "You command me. Now? You command my power when all this time you've feared it. All this time you've taken my abilities that I have given you for granted. Who are you to ask for such power when you have done nothing but squander it?" Izuku looks into the wolf's eyes and says, "I have readied myself to become a symbol to others. I want to change the world into my image, the way that I think it should be. People shouldn't have to be ashamed of what they look like. People shouldn't have to be ashamed of their power, be treated like a freak just because their quirk is different, just because they have been deemed an outcast." The wolf smiles and laughs. "Now that's the person I gave my power to. Use it well, boy. Because if you don't, I swear I will come back and I will devour you and all that you love." Deku snaps back into control. And just as Shinzo is about to beg for his life, Izuku jumps forward and says "boo," causing Shinzo to fall backwards and out of the ring. This is when President Mike declares Izuku the winner. The whole crowd is amazed at the display. They weren't expecting such a spectacle. I'm going to say that most of the fights go basically to canon, and I'm going to go to Todoroki's fight with Izuku. In this fight, I'm going to say that Izuku goes into his hybrid form, and as the match starts, Izuku runs forward and begins dodging all of Todoroki's ice attacks that he's throwing at him. I'm going to say that Izuku is essentially running circles around Todoroki and says, "Why are you holding back, Todoroki? I know you have fire. along with that ice, so why don't you use it? Todoroki responds with, I refuse to use my father's fire side. Deku finds this ridiculous and says, what do you mean your father's fire side? You're the only one I see here. I don't see your dad anywhere. So how is it I'm fighting his fire when my only opponent is you? Todoroki says that he rejects his father, that he refuses to use the fire quirk that he gave him. Deku laughs again, declaring that Todoroki is a fool for thinking that his father has any say over his own quirk. That it's his quirk. The quirk comes from his blood, from his skin. It comes off of him, not Endeavor. The quirk belongs to him. It's his quirk, not Endeavor's. This lights a fire under Todoroki's back. He gets fired up. He begins to shoot fire blast after fire blast at Izuku. And after freezing the whole arena, Izuku basically looks at Todoroki and says, is that all you got, Todoroki? Come on, show me more power. Show me what you really have in store for me. If you really want to prove yourself the best, then fight with all you have like the best. Todoroki looks at Deku and says, fine, you want my best, I'll give it to you, but don't go crying to your girl when you lose. Todoroki reaches back and heats the whole arena up. Deku goes into his full werewolf form, grows till he's about 15 feet tall, and charges directly at Todoroki at blinding speed. Todoroki thrusts his hand forward, yelling, Flash freeze, heat wave! The condensed air shoots at Deku, forcing him back, but Deku digs his claws deep into the cement, holding him in place, and ever forward pushes until he has Todoroki pinned to the ground under his paw. You gave me your best, Todoroki. I know that you are better than this. You don't need your dad's quirk. It's your quirk. It's yours alone. No one has the right to tell you what you can and cannot do with your quirk. Just like I made the conscious decision to be a hero, despite being abandoned. Todoroki hears Deku's words, and for the first time, he really sees Izuku. He really understands Izuku. For the first time, he can sympathize with Izuku's plight, because he understands that feeling of betrayal, that feeling of hurt. Deku then pushes Todoroki the rest of the way off of the ring, and at that moment Todoroki faints from exhaustion, and so does Deku. He plops over on his side, still feeling as he feels the adrenaline start to go away. It takes everything he has to stay awake, And as he starts to black out, he feels himself shift back into his human form. I'm going to say that the rest of the fights up until the final one, which is Deku versus Bakugo, also go to canon. Now, this fight is going to be intense for a multitude of reasons. And for any of you who are wondering exactly how Uraraka isn't the one fighting Deku in the end, I'm gonna say that it's because of the fact that even though she knows beast martial arts because of Deku, that it wasn't enough for her to beat Bakugo. Though I will say that she did give him a run for his money. That it wasn't in canon where where she couldn't get anything to connect and it just didn't work for her. She was able to hit him, but a considerable amount. She delivered a lot of kicking blows to Bakugo. It's just unfortunately Bakugo was able to basically outlast her, and she ended up passing out because of exhaustion from overusing her quirk. Now, because of Bakugo not being a complete a-hole in this, technically he didn't he did at least have the courtesy to help her up and help her over to a stretcher with some medical bots on carrying it before the bots eventually took her to the infirmary to recover. And I'm gonna say that essentially Izuku respected Bakugo for not overdoing it and for at least giving Uraraka a fair fight. So before any of the actual fighting begins, right? Izuku and Bakugo are on the stage face to face. Bakugo looks at Izuku and says, "So, why is it you ran away from me before? Why is it that you ran away whenever I told you the name of my childhood friend?" Izuku's heart tightened at this, and he looked at Bakugo. He told Bakugo that he would prefer to talk about this when no one else is around, for personal reasons. And Bakugo was confused but respected Deku's desire to not discuss important matters like this in such a public setting, especially not before a fight. So both participants got into their fighting positions, and Izuku changed into hybrid mode. And Midnight basically commenced the fight, and Bakugo, using his explosions, charges towards Izuku, and Izuku pivots to the side to avoid it, but Bakugo uses his explosions to redirect around to hit him in the back. But Izuku, having already experienced this once, kind of sees it coming and like ducks down to the ground as fast as he can, and jumps to the side in order to kind of like make it easier on himself. Now, it's at this point that Izuku lunges towards Bakugo with his claws and delivers a substantial slash towards Bakugo, though unfortunately it barely grazed Bakugo, leaving a very, very like shallow nick on him. And Izuku followed this up by kind of charging forward again and swinging his leg to sweep Bakugo's feet out from under him, before then trying to decisively strike Bakugo with an elbow to the side. This landed this time, causing Bakugo to kind of hit the arena floor and get kind of sprawled out, though he uses his explosions to right himself at the last second so that he's not laying flat on the ground. He's kind of in a crouched position now. He uses his explosions to kind of propel himself forward and cocks back his arm to deliver a punch to Izuku's side. And as he's making his way forward, Izuku kind of like turns and gets himself into a cross guard before seeing Bakugo create explosions coming out of the the other side of from his, I'm gonna say, his left arm, propelling spinning him like a spinning top, before finally punching Izuku in the crossguard, which knocked Izuku back a couple of feet. Izuku admired Bakugo's creativity to use the explosions to spin himself to create a momentum to like add a bit more force to his strike. Izuku then charged forward, getting Bakugo by the neck and basically slamming him into the ground as hard as he could. This causing Bakugo to lose the air in his lungs before reaching his hand up to Izuku's face and exploding the side of his face, making Deku stagger back a bit. After recovering a bit, it's seen by Bakugo and the audience as the skin around the side of Izuku's face starts to kind of regenerate and reconfigure itself, ultimately healing the wound. Most people in the crowd kind of found this kind of gross, but as it goes, that's just how it works. Werewolf regeneration and all that. Anyway, Izuku then kind of gets down low and like on all fours and starts charging towards Bakugo before jumping up and using his claws to deliver a nasty slash to the side of Bakugo's abdomen, giving him a nice, thorough cut. Then coming back around and cutting onto the back of Bakugo's wrist, causing blood to pool into his I'm going to say left hand. Izuku then lands and watches as Bakugo is struggling now. Struggling, you may ask? Well, unfortunately, now that Deku has caused a bleeding injury on Bakugo's arm, the blood is now mixing with his sweat, neutralizing the explosive effects of the nitroglycerin. Izuku pulls back a malicious smile and looks at Bakugo and explains, "Looks like I outsmarted you," before charging back at him, causing Bakugo to kind of backpedal a bit, figuring out that now he's kind of lost some combat-based edge in the fight. Deku then kind of grabs Bakugo by his other arm and swings him around and throws him towards the outside of the ring. And unfortunately, now that Bakugo only has one hand left, he's not able to have the same propulsion force that he did when he had two. So the best he can do is spin around like a spinning top in vain as he hits the grass, ultimately resulting in a ring out. And that concludes the end of the UA Sports Festival, with Izuku in first place, Bakugo in second, and Todoroki sharing third with Tokoyami. Izuku is presented his medal, and All Might smiles at him, saying, "I am proud of you, young Izuku. You have showed great intelligence and great strategical skill today. And I would be proud to call you my student, my protege." Kind of, he basically says that, All Might hints to Deku that he essentially passed his initiation test to be the next Symbol of Peace's successor. And I'm going to say that after the festival, or as the festival ends, Deku tells Bakugo to meet him in waiting room B, because he wants to talk to him. Bakugo nods and agrees to meet him in waiting room B. As Izuku makes his way to the infirmary to visit Ochako before meeting with Bakugo, he hears Ochako on the phone. She sounds sad and disappointed. She's crying and apologizing to her parents for not being able to make it further in the festival, and that she's sorry, which Deku can hear that both of her parents tell her that she doesn't need to be sorry for anything, that they're just happy that she's able to go to the school of her dreams and live out her desire to be a hero. Deku understands that he shouldn't meddle in this moment, that he'll just talk to her after his meeting with Bakugo. So he goes to waiting room B and opens the door, and sitting there is Katsuki Bakugo with his arm all wrapped up in gauze to kind of take care of the cut that he suffered from Izuku. Now, Izuku is kind of sympathetic and tells Bakugo that he's sorry that he had kind of cut him pretty bad right there. Bakugo says that it's fine, that he doesn't hold it against him or anything. And he's sitting there in front of Bakugo, and Bakugo looks up and says, "So, what was the reason you ran away?" Deku takes a deep breath and basically explains to Bakugo that it really is him. That he really is Izuku. His best friend, Izuku. Bakugo is shocked to hear this news. He asks why he would run away. Izuku explains it's because he suffered a lot in the time that he was gone. And that, hearing his name for the first time in a while, it brought back some very bad memories that he didn't want to think about. Katsuki is confused as to what Deku means by bad memories. He explains to Katsuki that he wasn't... he asks Katsuki exactly what his mother told him happened to him. His Bakugo told Izuku that Inko had told him, his mother, and his dad that you were kidnapped by a villain in an attack. Deku laughs at this and says, "Of course she'd tell you that." Bakugo asks for the truth, though. And Deku tells him that he wasn't taken or kidnapped in some attack, that his mother had essentially, that after him and his mom left the house on his birthday, he had his quirk come in as he stared at the full moon. And when his mother saw him, she freaked out, he supposes, and drove him into a dark, as deep as she could, into some dark, desolate woods, and dumped him there, promising to come back with someone who could help me control my quirk. She abandoned me, Bakugo. She left me in those woods, hungry, scared, and alone. When I saw you, I was so happy because I could see someone from my past who cared about me, who protected me from people who ridiculed me for not having a quirk. But whenever I saw you, I was also afraid, because I thought that I'd have to go back to her. I'd have to go back to that woman. This made Katsuki sick to his stomach to hear that Izuku was abandoned by his mom, that he was left behind in the woods, abandoned like some disease-ridden creature, left behind with no one to take care of him. It made Bakugo angry. It made him furious to hear that his best friend had to go through such pain. But he took a breath. He looked at Deku and told him that he was not going to let his mom take him back. That he can see now that he's happier with his girlfriend in the dorms. He's happier now that he found someone to love him like he should have been loved. Take care of him like he should have been taken care of. And that he's just glad that his best friend is back. And that he hopes that him and Deku can still be friends. But Deku says of course they can still be friends. That he has nothing against Bakugo. It's just he doesn't want to go back to his mom. He doesn't want to go back to her, the person who gave him up just because she was afraid of his quirk, because she prejudged him as evil just because of the fact that he looked like a werewolf. Bakugo says that he's happy that Izuku has found himself a better life, and that he's happy that he found someone to love him, and that he's sorry he couldn't be there for him all these years, and that he's sorry he couldn't help him or have been the one to fix what his mother caused. Deku says that he doesn't blame him for any of it, that it was not his fault that he was abandoned by his mother, that he's just happy to have his friend back. He asks Bakugo to please not tell his mom about him, to not tell his mom about how he's back, how he's no longer that he's not missing anymore. Bakugo promises that he won't tell his mom if that will make Deku feel better. Bakugo stands to his feet and gives Deku a hug, essentially telling him that he missed him and that he's happy that he's back. Deku's heart is lifted that his best friend is still going to be there for him, and that his best friend cares so much about his well-being. He was afraid after all these years that Bakugo had forgotten who he was, that he had lost the one friend he had before any of this mess ever happened. He asks Bakugo if he would like to come over and have dinner with him and his girlfriend. Bakugo said that he would be delighted to finally meet his best friend's girlfriend. So, both essentially make their way out of waiting room B and back to the campus, where Izuku basically gets ready for a dinner with his girlfriend and to officially introduce his best friend to his partner. Uraka is excited to meet her boyfriend's childhood friend officially this time. And Deku is too. He's happy that he gets to spend these moments with her, side by side, hand in hand. He thanks her once more for being the person that found him. I think I'm going to leave off this part right here. I hope you all have a good day. And don't forget, the shadows are watching.